Want to hear a scary story?
Once upon a time, in the kingdom of a fickle fae, filled with cold beauty and cruel wonders, a wicked witch was banished to the mortal world for a crime too terrible to name. In her escape, she carried her last and greatest theft, a child not of flesh and blood, but something half-formed, plucked too soon from its cradle in the dark. The boy was soft, like the space between waking and dreaming, and his tiny face was unfinished. But the witch was wise. She knew that the thing she had taken would always yearn for the world it had been torn from, that it would slip through her fingers and return to the cradle of the Fae if she did not bind it. To prevent the other world from calling to him, she laid a curse upon his name, and soon it was forgotten. The whimpering child grew twisted under her care, as the dark magic took root in his bones, twisting through marrow and reshaping him in the will of his newfound mother. His limbs stretched and shrank, so they were far too long in some places, but too stubby in others. His fingers blackened like the legs of a spider, and the end of his spine curled inward like the roots of an ancient tree. And his voice, his terrible voice, was the sound of dead leaves scraping over stone. The witch raised him in the dark of her cottage in the woods, where the rafters sagged under the weight of dried herbs and animal pelts, the smells of wormwood and belladonna overwhelming the damp fur and rot. Tangles of bird bones were strung up like wind chimes, and each surface beheld an endless array of bottles, jars, and vials, filled with teeth, hair, and pickling eyeballs. She taught him the old magics, the art of spinning something from nothing, of plucking the world's refuse and weaving it into treasures fit for kings. But nothing lasts forever, and in time, the witch was gone. Whether she had died or met some darker fate, unraveling into the void from which she had come, none could say. And so the twisted thing that was her son wandered alone. Eventually, he stumbled upon a girl locked in a tower, her sobs echoing through the cold stone walls. She sat hunched over a pile of straw, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her fingers, raw and bloody, trembled as they twisted the straw hopelessly, the spinning wheel thrown aside in despair. She was the miller's daughter, bound by her father's reckless promise to the king, a promise made out of desperation to save his family from ruin. The king, intrigued by the outlandish claim that she could spin straw into gold, had brought her to the castle, where he demanded she prove her worth or face the consequences. "Get to work now," the king said. "Spin all night, and if by morning you have not spun this straw into gold, then your father will die for his dishonesty." Then she was locked in the room, all alone, and for her life, she had no idea what to do. for magic was not hers to wield, and so she did the only thing she could. She wept. "Poor little thing," whispered a crackling voice from the shadows, and the girl was startled so. The little man that was Rumpelstiltskin unfurled from the shadows like a spider stretching its crooked legs. His joints clanked against themselves as they moved along, and his eyes were large black pits. "Why are you crying?" he asked. "Oh," answered the girl, "I am supposed to spin straw into gold, and I do not know how to do it." The little man said, "What will you give me if I spin it for you?" She thought for a moment, then placed her blood-stained hand upon the chain at her throat. "My necklace," said the girl. It was a modest thing, nothing more than a simple pendant, but it was a gift from her mother, buried many years ago. The little man took the necklace between his fingers, and it sank into his flesh, swallowed whole. Then he set to work, but not with the spinning wheel, for that was a tale for gentler worlds. The little man reached to his wrist, where the skin parted like the seam of a too-tight glove, and from within he plucked a single thread, long, wet, glistening, impossibly fine. Unspooled, he fed it to the straw, and the straw drank it deep. By dawn, the room was filled with treasure, and the little man, hollow and thin as a husk, disappeared once more to the shadows. When the king saw the gold, he was overjoyed and greatly impressed, but he was not satisfied, for greed is a wretched thing. He wanted more. His Majesty had the miller's daughter taken to another chamber filled with straw, this one grander and taller than the first, filled to the rafters with fodder. He ordered her to spin all the straw to gold by the next morning, if she valued her life or her father's. Then the door was locked behind her. The heavy key turned with an ominous clank. The girl did not know what to do, and she cried and bit her lip until it bled as her hands trembled over the useless spinning wheel. Then once again, the strange man appeared from the shadows. He said, "What will you give me if I spin the straw into gold for you?" "The ring from my finger," answered the girl. The man smiled, his teeth too small and too sharp for his mouth, and as tears welled in the young girl's eyes, she tugged the simple band from her finger, her very last relic of her mother's love. She placed it in his palm, and his fingers closed over it, swallowing it whole. Then he reached into his own chest, parting the skin like overripe fruit, and grasped a dewy thread from beneath the flesh and pulled. The raw, bloody fibers twisted into gleaming gold, bleeding light into the dark room as he spun, and by morning, the room was filled with treasure. The king was happy beyond measure when he saw it, but he still did not have his fill. He ordered for the vast and towering ballroom to be filled from floor to ceiling with straw, like the dunes of some terrible desert. Then he took the miller's daughter to it and said, "Tonight you must spin this too. If you succeed, you shall become my wife." As he watched the servants lock the heavy doors, the king laughed to himself. "I will not find a richer wife in all the world, even if she is a miller's daughter." When the girl was alone, the strange man returned for a third time. He said, "What will you give me this time if I spin the straw into gold?" "I have nothing more that I could give you," answered the girl. "What would you give to live another day?" asked the man. "Anything," she whispered. "Then promise me," he said, licking his lips. "After I make you rich, and you marry the king, and you sit upon a golden throne, your firstborn child will be mine." The girl, trembling, nodded. "Who knows what will happen otherwise?" she thought. And certainly, the king would kill her and her father if she failed. So she choked back a sob, and the deal was struck. And in return, the man once again spun the straw into gold. When in the morning the king found everything just as he desired, he married her, and the beautiful miller's daughter became a queen. A year passed, and the queen bore a child, a perfect thing, warm and pink and soft. She thought no more of the creature from the dark. But one night, as the wind howled against the castle walls, she awoke to find him standing at the foot of her bed. "Now, give me what you promised." The queen took fright and wept, offering all the riches of the kingdom if he would let her keep the child. "No," the man said. "Something living is dearer to me than all the treasures of the world." But in all her crying, he began to feel pity for the girl. So he said, "I will give you 3 days' time. If by then you know my name, then you shall keep your child." The queen spent the entire night thinking of all the names she had ever heard. Then she sent a messenger into the country to inquire far and wide what other names had been cursed or forgotten. When the strange little man returned the next day, she guessed Jacob, Wilhelm, and Hansel. And after each one, the man said, "That is not my name." The second day, she sent inquiries into the neighborhood as to what names people had. She recited the most unusual and most curious names to the little man. "Is your name Button Bright?" she asked. "Perhaps Bluebeard or Fezziwig?" "No, no, no," the little man always answered. "That is not my name." On the third day, the messenger returned and said, "I have not been able to find a single new name, but when I was approaching a high mountain in the corner of the woods, there, where the fox and the hare say goodnight, I saw a little fire burning in front of a little house, and a grotesque little man was jumping about the fire, hopping on one leg and shouting secrets to the trees. Spin and weave, thread and bone. When debt is sealed, a fate is sown. The child is mine, the pact is set. For who could name me? None have yet. Twist and turn, the deal is made. Yet say my name, and I shall fade. Though tongues may twist, and voices dim, none shall say, Rumpelstiltskin. When the little man appeared that night, triumphantly grinning, the young girl did not cry, nor did she plead or slouch. She stood tall, and when the man said, "Now, Madam Queen, what is my name?" she first asked, "Is your name Percival?" "No." "Then Augustus?" "No." "Perhaps it could be," she said, pausing with thrill, "Rumpelstiltskin." The man convulsed as if struck, as his lips twisted furiously. "The devil told you that," he cried. "The devil told you." "Rumpelstiltskin," the girl shouted. "Rumpelstiltskin! Rumpelstiltskin! Rumpelstiltskin!" His skin darkened, then split, his fingers curling inward like charred paper. He let out a horrible cry of laughter and agony, and then the fire took him, eating him from the inside out. The room filled with the scent of scorched earth, the air choked with cinders, and then he was gone. The queen held the child to her breast and fled her chambers without looking back. But when the doors of the grand hall flung open, and the people gathered round to welcome their queen and her babe, someone, a nursemaid perhaps, spoke the little boy's name lovingly, and the baby screamed. Before their eyes, one tiny arm blackened and withered, the skin curling away like old parchment, until nothing remained but a stump.